Welcome to Making Sense. It's the podcast for people who want financial freedom without giving up their coffee, supported by our friends at Kiwibank. I'm Frances Cook, an independent financial journalist and fellow financial freedom seeker who makes money simple for you. If your hair really bothered you, you thought about it all the time, would you spend $20,000 on a permanent fix? Because today's guest did. And not only did he do that, he says it was a good financial decision. Now, he would know because he's actually a financial advisor. You might be thinking, well, that's all very nice if you've got $20,000 to throw away on your hair. But he says that's the point. The point of chasing financial freedom is that he could address something that was really bothering him without going into high interest debt and while still hitting other life goals. So, what did he do to make this work? And frankly, I also quite want to know, does a hair transplant hurt? Making Sense is on a mission to make money simple, and I just couldn't do that without the support of Kiwibank. It's really important to me to only work with companies that understand that mission, and the difference it makes when you understand the money world. For Kiwibank, their purpose is to help Kiwi and Aotearoa be better off. So bringing you real stories of inspirational and unconventional approaches to finance is one of the ways they're making a real difference to the lives of their customers. This is making Kiwi better off. This is Kiwi. All right, welcome, James Blair, financial advisor at Lighthouse Financial. Now, you are joining us, for those who are watching the YouTube, glorious head of hair and well-earned.
Imagine it's like down to my shoulders, right? And I'm working on the Pantene sponsorship. But it's not quite
Just
there
look at it. Maybe that's how we could fund it. Get it sponsored now.
Yeah. Be able to, there's a lot of maintenance required on this now.
Yeah. Ooh, we should talk later about options. You're going to go full mullet or something, really take advantage?
Definitely a perm.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Well, look, you're someone who works in the financial world. You help people sort out their money. And you have now recently spent $20,000 on your hair. Do you think those two things would surprise each other? That you are a money guy and yet you would have such a big expenditure on something like hair?
For sure. I think for people who look at it from the outside, that makes a lot of sense. But it's probably the same thing as when it comes to my clients as well. When I encourage them to spend more money, it surprises people, but it really comes down to where is your money going and what adds value in your life.
100%. Do you feel like there's this expectation, right? And I get this a lot when I talk to people who I can tell know what I do, but don't necessarily follow it, because I do try very hard to sort of give people that permission to enjoy their lives. But I feel like there's an expectation sometimes when you work with money, you talk about money a lot, you help other people with their money, and you're sort of positioned as someone who is good with money, that therefore you must never go to cafes, that you disapprove of spending on anything that's sort of seen as frivolous or could be seen as vanity is the wrong word, but do you know what I mean? That there's that expectation that you don't get into that stuff. Do you come across that too?
Yeah, for sure. I think it really comes down to people thinking that those who deal around money, cheap is better. But really, it comes down to the core concept around what is the purpose of money. And money is only there for two things: to help you live the life you want to live now and help you live the life you want to live in the future. And I've got a lot of people who have died with a lot of money. And I bet you if they could do it again, they would do a lot of things. Or they go, I'm not going to do any travel right now because I want to retire early or retire at a certain age. But when you're the youngest, your hair looks the best, you're not getting to enjoy these things. The biggest correlation I can give or analogy is money is very much like health and exercise, right? Everything is about balance. If you just gym every day of the week, you eat chicken, broccoli, and rice, by Friday you're going to blow out and eat a whole sales pizza, which sounds like a lot of fun. But it's about consistency, right? And working towards having a plan that you're working towards, where you're here are my short-term goals that are important to me. Here are my long-term goals that are important to me, opposed to just being I don't know, a kite in the wind and you just kind of, wherever things go, they go.
Oh my God, you're absolutely speaking my language here. Okay, let's start with your decision and then sort of tease out what this can tell us about approaches to money, right? So spending $20,000 on your hair, was it $20,000 flat?
It was about 15, and then I got it done in Australia, and then I was stuck in Australia for a few days. So all up, it was about 20. Just for those who are wondering, I did look into options in New Zealand, and it was going to be like about another 10 grand more than that. The other very common question I get is why not Turkey? Look, Turkey I would do if I wasn't married with a toddler. I wouldn't want to, take my toddler to Europe because a 2.5-year-old can try to sit still for 30 hours does not sound like fun. But the other
Sounds like
thing,
hell.
to completely contradict it, I'm sure you can relate to this, Francis, I don't want to be away from my child for like a really long period of time either, which is why Sydney was a good option. I left on a Friday. I was back the following Wednesday or something like that. So yeah, that's why we chose Australia. It was about 20 all up.
So what did you get done? Is this like a hair transplant? I don't know much about this. Walk me through A, how much the situation was bothering you, and B, what you actually got.
Let's start with the background. So my dad has been on like hair pills for a long period of time. His hair's been thinning. He's probably not going to like me saying that, but that's the truth. And I started taking, so I'm 34 now. I started taking hair pills to try and keep my hair probably like 21. So from like 21, I was like aware that like my hair was thinning. And then it got to the point where I became more and more aware of it. I ended up with like this almost like bird's nest on my head where I try and like put it all together to make it look okay. And that was fine, Francis, unless it was windy or I had to like jump in a pool or something, and then I was completely exposed. And then about 4 years ago, Mike and I decided to start Checks and Balances, our financial literacy podcast.
Great podcast, by the way, for anyone listening.
Thank you. Make sure to subscribe, review, and like. The big thing for me with the podcast is you're looking at your face all the bloody time. And it just becomes more and more aware, and you see like the spots in your head. So I think when it comes to a hair transplant, you kind of go, oh, what are other people going to think, and what are they going to say, and are they going to take the piss out of me and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I got to a point, and I think it's just kind of like as you get a little bit older in your life, you do the things that are important to you. And if it's important to you, if it impacts your confidence, if it's going to make you like more happy, and if you're in a position financially to be able to do it, why wouldn't I do it? And that's where I was like, let's rock and roll. And to be fair, my wife was really good because the first step is you go, I want to do something about this. The next step is a little bit scary as well when you start contacting all these companies and talking about something, which is very, it's that thing that you're very self-conscious of. You don't want to talk about it as a problem. Like everybody's got something like that. My wife was really good. She was like, she knew it was bothering me and she took a lot of that burden off me. So she got some quotes. She contacted some of the people. She booked some of the appointments with me as well, which to be honest, I don't know if I would have overcome that obstacle without her help. And then we spoke to a few places. It's very interesting when you do it. They're like it's such a big deal to me. And you have like a 10-minute appointment. I think it was over WhatsApp. And the guy was talking about the cost per hair. And I'm just like, how the hell do I do the math on like, he's like, oh yeah, so we charge like $3 per follicle. And I reckon you'll probably be like 4,000 follicles or something. And I'm like,
Trying to frantically do the mental math.
yeah. It's like when people talk in percentages instead of dollars and you're like, how much is this actually going to cost me, and all T's and C's that apply. So in terms of the actual process itself, the mortgage director at Lighthouse, AJ, he had been thinking about doing it for years, and he was like, you're doing it, I'm doing it. So we actually both went over together, which was quite cool.
All the friends trip.
Seeing us post-surgery walking down like the streets of Sydney, like we have like shower caps on, it's a whole thing.
Did you have the like bloody scalp? Like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. The full thing. In terms of the procedure and the day, because I get like asked a lot of questions about that. We got there about 6 a.m. in the morning, and they give you like, I don't know, a bunch of pills, and they go down these and like painkillers and all types of things to kind of deal with it. And then they go, cool, it's time to shave your head. And you got to remember, Francis, this is like 10 past 6 in the morning. They're not mucking around, and they're like, shave your head. And you're like, well, okay. And you're like, I guess we're doing this. And they shaved my head. And I got to say, a lot of men worry about what they would look like bald. I was like, this is a great backup plan. I don't mind this too much at all.
If the transplant doesn't work, we're going full like the other direction. We're going
Yep.
consent to recede and whipping it off.
Yeah, for sure. I'd already paid at that point. And I'm like, I understand why you pay before they shave your head, just in case you're like, actually, I'd like that money back.
Yeah, I'm rocking this. I'm fine, actually.
Yeah. So they shave your head and then they go like, cool, what kind of hairline do you want? And this is where a lot of people stuff it up. I don't know if you've seen a bad hair transplant, but people come down to like here and then there's like all these bald spots and it's all to do with in your forehead, where are your muscles? Because the muscles in your forehead, essentially you can't bring your hairline too low or just like it'll start to go back up again. And I was just like, look, I just want you to fill in what's up top, try and get this to look okay. But that is one thing I would say is a lot of people stuff up the trying to go too low or do too much with the hairline that doesn't look natural.
Oh, hot man.
And then they put the anesthetic in your head. The first half of the day sucks because you're lying face, like a massage chair, but it's like at a 45-degree angle. I'm face down on the massage chair, just looking at the ground. I'm wide awake. And they're pulling out the follicles one by one. So they take it out of like the middle part of the back of your head. And they do it in a way where like obviously they're not taking too much hair. When it grows back, it's not too bad. And then they put it into this like huge petri dish. So I think I got 38 follicles taken out. So one by one. And for those that are a bit squeamish, they might want to skip past this part. The best way I could describe it is an apple core. So like a mini apple core in each hair follicle. So they put it in, they squeal it out, and then they like do that, and then they come back and they take them back out. And then,
Wow.
So that was the first half of the day. In hindsight, I wish I was more pedantic around the anesthetic. Like when they're like, can you feel this? Can you feel this? And I was like, oh, yeah, it's fine.
I'm fine. I'm a big tough guy. And then afterwards, you're like, I should have got more.
Yeah, I can confirm I should have not been a tough guy. And I was like, I want more. And he goes, my guy, we're too deep into this. You just got to like deal with it.
Ugh.
So that was probably like the first half of the day. And then the second half of the day was I'm sitting face up on the chair. I'm actually watching the cricket. So I'm in my happy place. I've got two nurses and one, they're just both like dropping them back into the front of my head. It's kind of like, I don't know, like a big coloring in like sort of thing where you're like filling in the gaps. And that was kind of completely fine. But that whole process, we got there at 6, we left at about 6. So it was about 12 hours.
Far out. And what was the recovery like as well? Like were you sore for a while afterwards?
Yeah. So like the first few nights, you walk out with a shower cap and love AJ to bits. AJ was like on day 2, he doesn't like being inside. He's a very social guy. He goes, mate, should we like pop down to the pub down the road? And I'm like, AJ, I am not going outside. Like, I love your self-confidence and wanting a pint. I'm not doing that. So we stayed inside. Essentially, you can't like wash your scalp or anything. It's all about letting like the scabs kind of heal and everything. And then around day 10, like they start to come out and your hair starts to grow. And at about the 2-month mark, your hair starts to fall out because essentially the hairs have to fall back out for the new ones to go through. And this is about 6 months post. I got done like mid-December, so it's about 6 months. The end product is probably like 12 months.
What a process. That is. I love when you were like, for anyone who's squeamish, skip ahead. And I'm like, I'm squeamish. I'm stuck here.
You're not going
But I did
anywhere.
this for myself.
Yeah.
It's fascinating at the same time. I'm absolutely fascinated by this journey. So now that you are so far through the process and you're seeing the results, and I mean, obviously I'm seeing you through a webcam, but hair looks great, gotta say. And thank goodness. Just spending that much and going through all that. But now that you've gone through it, how are you feeling? Both in terms of, sort of the emotional journey, I'm sure, but also in terms of the financial expenditure. You've had time to cool down a bit and, see that sort of all shake out through your finances. Both sides of it. How are you feeling?
I wish I did it earlier, to be honest. Running a business, talking to clients about their finances, married with a child, like your boy's got enough on his plate. I don't need to be thinking about stuff I don't need to be thinking about, if you know what I mean. So like I wish I did it earlier so I could mentally get that off my plate. And I tell you, I don't think about my hair at all, except sometimes I walk past the mirror and I go, not looking bad. There's no bald spots. In terms of the financial component, in my head, it was part of my plan. So like, I haven't thought about the costs except for talking about it in podcasts since, because once the money's allocated, it's gone. And like the ROI on that money was huge for me. So I don't think about the cost at all.
Walk me through a little bit on that. I mean, did you tap into savings, sell any investments, or save up for it over a period of time? How did you handle that expenditure?
So I've got a mortgage on my own home, and then essentially what I do is I use like a floating loan, a revolving credit, to kind of pay down with my savings, pay down so I can save interest costs, and then within that as well, I'll go, what short term costs do I have coming up that I want to work towards? So I had the money set aside within a revolving credit that I was going to draw back out. And I know once I draw that back out, I need to then focus, okay, I need to like knock back through that revolving credit to get it back to a point that I'm happy. But that's how I plan about it and thought about it.
For me, when I look at this, because I saw you post about it and we follow each other's work, I love what you do. You talk about money all the time, and I think you bring a lot of value to people, being someone who works in the space and then is willing to share so much for free. It's brilliant. And then when I saw you talking about this, it really tapped into something that I've talked about a lot, and I think this is a great example of the idea of the values-based spending. I mean, it's not the idea of just spending willy-nilly of like, all bets are off, do what you like, but the idea that A, if something does fit in your budget and you're not going into debt for it, then great. And B, to genuinely bring value and happiness to your life. Like you were saying earlier, that money isn't just there to be hoarded, it's there to help you build the life you want now and in the future. And it's just being strategic about that. So would you say this idea of values-based spending, is that something that you've always identified with that idea, or did you sort of come to it a bit later?
I think it's something at Lighthouse we really like pride ourselves on, in terms of, instead of giving financial advice on like a widget, like shares or KiwiSaver or property or whatever, we're very focused on the person and what the person wants to achieve is like our biggest thing. And within that, what we find is I would say, Francis, at least 80% of the people we talk to say the exact same thing. We earn good money. We don't go out for dinner all the time. We're not buying lots of clothes, but the money disappears. The answer is very simple, is you don't have structure and clarity of where your money is going. The whole thing with like kind of budgeting, which is what we're talking about, is not going like spending $10,000 on dinners out or holidays is good or bad. It's just going, if I annualize where you spend your money, one is, are you going to get pretty close to the number of knowing where your money is going? And second, outside of your fixed expenses, those areas you're spending money, are they adding value to your life? And that's where like most people get it wrong, is they're just so busy on the hamster wheel, the little like going to New World that extra couple of times a week, spending little bits of money here and there add up. And if you can get better day-to-day structure with your money, with the right accounts, some sort of system to like track it at the end, and automatic payments, the bigger expenses from a financial projections perspective never ruin the financial plan. It's always the little day-to-day stuff and the lack of knowing where your money is going, which will destroy a financial plan.
All right. So what makes for good structure then? You deal with so many different people, and I'm sure different things work for different people. But have you found some key themes of ways that people should be, I don't know, tracking their money, apps, spreadsheets? Like what works for people to bring in that structure?
What you said is 100% true, is one size does not fit all. It's kind of like going to like F45 versus running versus heavy weights. Like there's heaps of ways to get to the same outcome. And as long as it's finding a system that works for you. For the listeners, if they don't have a system that's working for them yet, what we like is, so the first thing we do is we send them, like we have a spreadsheet that they complete, and going like, put in all of your fixed expenses, your ongoing expenses. Ongoing expenses, they'd be like doctors, dentists, gifts, like things that pop up but they're not regular. And then kind of the things you're saving towards, maybe ad hoc expenses, holidays, whatever it might be. And then when people fill out that budget, the first thing I do is going like, cool, so you think you can live off this? And they're like, yep. And I go, cool, let's put it to a bigger number. And they go like, what do you mean? And I was like, if you agree you can live on this, if I increase it by like 20%, you definitely think you'll be comfortable, eh? And they go, yep. Because I know if I can get them to agree to something that's actually realistic, we have a way better probability of achieving their plan. So I always usually end up increasing the expenses because they forecast something that is way too conservative. That's not reality at all. Then what we do is go, once again, lots of different ways to do it. The structure we like is you have a fixed expense account. So all of your money goes into that account. Then it all goes out automatically through APs and direct debits. The idea is you never touch that account. You've got your ongoing expenses, which are all those ones I mentioned, the ones that pop up but aren't there all the time. And then you move money into your like day-to-day account when you need to. Then you've got your day-to-day account, and that's like the groceries, it's like paying for transport, all the other things that pop up. And then that kind of more short-term account, holidays, ad hocs, those sort of things. And then you've obviously got like a mortgage account, or maybe you've got a savings or an investing account that, whatever goal that you're trying to work towards. Within that as well, we like Pocketsmith as a tool. So Dunedin-based company, they're doing really cool stuff. Essentially, the way I describe Pocketsmith, it's great and terrifying because you can't lie to it. You can lie to a spreadsheet as much as you like, but this pulls live feeds from your bank account, and then you can set kind of like with Xero, you've got like a live P&L where you can go, where is my money actually going? So I've got budgeted versus actuals, and that is very interesting to see what people think is going to happen versus what is reality.
Yes. I love Pocketsmith. I've talked to that team a few times, and they are just killing it. For anyone who is looking for a good tracker, I get that question all the time. Pocketsmith's brilliant. Chelsea from our friends at Kiwibank has all the hot tips on what banks really look for when applying for a home loan. And frankly, I'm stoked to hear your avocado isn't under threat. Want more? Check out the episode from 22nd May called What the Bank Wants to Know Before It Approves Your Mortgage. This is making Kiwi better off. This is Kiwi. You mentioned earlier, and you've just sort of hinted at it again, about telling clients to spend more. I mean, look at your budget and actually be realistic. Let's build a budget that is not just who you want to be, but who you actually are, which I think is one thing I still struggle with that when I'm looking at my numbers. And let's actually be realistic here. But also this idea of spend more if it's something that you actually want. What are the guardrails on that? Because, of course, there are limits to this idea of values-based spending, right? There's a world where you can at it to justify anything. You say, I want a Ferrari. It'll make me happy. Give it to me.
Well, a Ferrari would make you happy, right?
Yeah, for at least a week. It would be quite fun, right. I'm sure. How do you genuinely assess what is truly going to bring value to my life? What is actually a good purchase to make here?
So it's looking at your goals in totality. So the idea is what do you want to achieve, not just in the short term, but the other goals. So what we find is that most people's goals tend to fall in the same kind of areas. So what are the short term things that are important to me in terms of my life right now? Where do I want to live? So that might be I'm planning to upgrade my home. I want to renovate. I'm going to downsize. I want to rent long term, whatever it might be. When do I want to be financially free? So financially free over my time as a financial advisor. At the start, retirement was a word that was used a lot, and people still retire at 65. Now people don't really want to retire because we're all living longer. People want options. They don't want to be tied to the situation. And then the other category is, around the kids. So what do we want to be able to do for the kids in the future if we've got kids? So some people want to be able to help with first cars, schooling, university, first homes, whatever it might be. And within all of those goals, you write them down. You go, when do you want them to happen? How much will it cost? And then you kind of go, from our perspective, like with a financial advisor, start to project all these things out and go, can we do them all? A lot of the time the answer is yes, depending on the person's situation. But let's say the answer is no, that you can't do everything. Then financial planning is essentially like a big game of what would you rather? Would you rather spend more money? Like, do you want to extend the retirement age and maintain your lifestyle? Do you actually not like the kids that much and you want to scrap them? Do you want to spend a little bit less money on travel so you can retire earlier? Is the renovation on the home actually that important? And then you have to prioritize all of these different goals. That's actually how, opposed to just buying Ferraris, you kind of have to look at it in totality and go, can I achieve all of my goals? Now, in a scenario where somebody can achieve all of their goals, I'm a big fan. Have you heard of the book and the concept Die with Zero?
Yes, I have, but explain it for us again because some people won't have, and it's a great one. I do recommend for those who like a little read or even an audiobook. I'm pretty sure it's on audiobook.
Yep.
It's a great one, but give us the potted history of it.
Die with Zero, pretty much the idea is that money is like energy, and essentially across your life, all of your money should be allocated and be spent. Like you shouldn't be having unallocated money. So, for example, when we're doing financial projections, within like a room for error, you should be like, by the time you hit 1995, all of your money should be gone. If you're dying with lots of money left over, it's missed opportunities. And those missed opportunities can be different for everybody. Maybe we could have lived in that nicer house, or we could have gone on more holidays, or I could have retired earlier from the job that I didn't like. Or instead of letting my kids get to 70 before they received an inheritance, I could give them a warm inheritance or help them with their home. Or there's a charity I'm really passionate about that I could have given some money. And from a selfish perspective, I get to see some enjoyment from that as well. So the idea is that we shouldn't be like Scrooge McDuck and be sitting on this big pile of gold. We should be allocating all of our money to different purposes, both now and in the future, and a life well lived. Like I tell my clients, a good financial advisor should make sure you die with less money. And they go like, that's a really weird concept, but money, once again, money is just a tool to enjoy now or later. If you're not going to enjoy it at all, what was the point in earning it?
Exactly. I feel like that there's this real misconception, and it's so deeply culturally rooted that I think it's always going to stick around, but I'm always going to push back against it too. That the idea of being good with money means you have a big pile of it and you don't touch it and you live this life of deprivation. And that is just such, I think, the wrong way to approach it. Money is a tool. It's a tool for building the life you want. It's a tool for helping people around you. It's a tool for building the future you want. And if you sit down and get strategic with it, I would really hope you can, as you say, maybe you can't do everything. Maybe you can. Awesome. But you can at least look at it and say, what is the big thing I want and how do I use the money to achieve that? When you're sitting down with people and you're setting these goals and sort of trying to figure out what they actually want from life, I mean, how often should you do that? Is that sort of like you sit down once you do it, or should we be doing this every year or whatever? And also, do people ever struggle to actually articulate what they really want? Because I'm sure they must.
Oh, yeah. And if they're in a relationship, there is a step before that where you like pretty much like I'm a low key like marriage counselor where like, I mean, we know that like 50% of people get divorced, and a big reason for divorces around money. Like I'll give you examples of really bad goals. So a goal is not, we should spend less money. A goal is not, I want to buy an investment property. A goal is not, I want to have $1 million in shares. They are bad goals, because what is my motivation to spend less money or buy a property? Nobody wants these things. They want what they think doing these things will give them in the future. So you better to do that. If you're in a relationship, what you need to do, opposed to telling your spouse to spend less money, which is very common in relationships because 90% of couples, like we're with different money personalities. Like how often do you talk to someone and one's a spender and one's a saver?
Every time.
And it creates like heaps of conflict. You get home on like a Thursday night, you're like, I don't want to like get into like a big fight about this. The thing that you need to do is go, what is the life we're trying to build? So what are the things that are important to us as a household? And a lot of the time I find these conversations haven't been happening because they're worried about how they're going to go. There might be like a degree of conflict. There's been conflict around it in the past. And then once you kind of go, like we've got that framework around like the house and, you know, do you feel like you're missing out right now? When do you want to retire? What do you want to do for the kids? And then there's like a bit of like compromise and negotiation between the two. But then once you've got those locked down, then you go, what behaviors, what actions do we need to take to be able to achieve those objectives? Because a plan, projections does not make anybody rich. Goals don't make anybody rich. It's the habits and the actions behind it and setting good structure that will get us to those goals. In terms of like how often you should like review the plan, the thing I would say is like, you think you're going to start here and get to here, and it's just going to be this nice linear line. But as Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. You know, we will have house prices will drop. We will be made redundant. People will get sick. We'll see divorces. we'll have an issue with our property or whatever it might be. A plan should be reviewed at least once a year because your life's going to change. The plan really shouldn't change. Like, we've got a very straightforward framework for growing wealth. It's adjusting the plan to what's happening in the person's life. The plan only needs to change because of the person. The strategy, and I'm sure you talk about this a lot, people tinker with their finances way too much. It's what happens in people's lives where the plan needs to change.
I love that. Okay, so you have a big life event of some kind. It's time to sit down and reassess the goals. And I love that quote as well. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Oh God, the number of times that's happened to me when life just gives me a little punch in the face and you're like, cool, love that so much for me. Look, if someone is going to make a big spend like you did, and I totally agree with what you said, that the big spends actually don't tend to derail the finances because it tends to be one and done and you can plan for it and it's all good. But still, if they're going to make a big non-essential decision like this, what do they need to do in order to integrate that with their life and say, okay, I'm doing this. I know I don't have to. I want to. And I want to make it as good a financial decision as possible. What sort of things do you need to tick off?
Definitely stay away from putting this on credit cards, personal loans. That's a really bad idea. If your default is to go to high interest debt, your plan is not working, because the problem is it's like the idea of paying for a holiday on a credit card, or where you're not going to pay it off for a personal loan, is you're going to be a slave to the high interest debt and really struggle to get out of it. So if that's your default, that's the wrong plan. Outside of that, you've got to first go, where am I going to fund this money from? Have I got cash? Am I drawing down on investments? Am I taking money back on my mortgage? Whatever the answer might be. And then the third component is, by doing this, does it impact any of my other goals that I have? And what is the impact on those other goals? So say, for example, by doing this, it means I'm going to have to work another 6 months or not be able to take a holiday this year or whatever it might be. And the framework is super simple. Is this thing more important to me than the sacrifice I've got to make over here? Because every action has a consequence, right? Has a reaction. And if the answer is yes, this thing is important to me, and I understand the implications on the other side, go spend the money. The problem is people don't go through that framework. They just spend the money.
Yeah, I saw something the other day that really resonated with me. And it was just one of those stupid social media moments, but I saved it to my phone because I was just like, that is an insight that I need to hold on to. And the gist of it was that there are a lot of people paralyzed because they want something and they're waiting for a way to get it without paying the price for it, rather than just paying the price and moving on. And I think that's such a good way of looking at it, because everything in life has a price. It might be a big price. It might be a small price. It might be a price you're willing to pay, and it might not. But there's going to be a price. You only have a certain amount of time, a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of money, whatever. And so you have to look at that and say, okay, if I want this, do I actually want it when it comes to the price? If you're not willing to pay the price, good as gold. That's fine. But also admit that you don't really want it. If you are willing to pay the price, let's go. Right?
Yep. Everyone wants the view, but nobody wants to take the climb.
Yeah.
I think that's why, if you think about the meme coins, some people's rationale for jumping into crypto, property flipping, drop shipping, subscribe, join my course and I'll make you rich type thing. It's the get rich quick mentality that will mean people will always stay poor. And as soon as you accept that building real wealth, and I'm not just talking about wealth in terms of dollars in the bank, I mean wealth in terms of the quality of the life that you live. As soon as you accept that it takes time, you'll get there a lot faster.
Because of course, the amount that you've just spent, $20,000, quite a big chunk of change. Would you describe yourself? Do you feel like someone who's wealthy?
I think if you look at it as a percentage of New Zealand, I'm in an incredibly fortunate position.
Are you someone who has deliberately built yourself to that position in order to be able to make choices like this?
For sure. To educate yourself on finances, to the basic concept of spend less that you earn, to focus on how you increase your income over time so you've got more choices. They're all fundamentals. But if James, the graduate who was earning 50 grand a year in 2012, went to spend $20,000 on his hair, like that's not happening at all, right? Like, or I'd be using really bad forms of way to be able to fund it. But because I built a business, I've got equity in property, I've got investment properties. Like, it gives you more choices as you do those things. The problem is people want to achieve results within 6 months, opposed to I've been building what I've been building in terms of my skill set and my financial position for like a decade and a half.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because for people who might sort of just see the headline on something like this, a podcast like this, and I can totally understand there will probably be some people who are frustrated at this very topic because it is hard when you're broke. I mean, I've been there. I've literally been in the position where there wasn't enough food. And I get it. When you're at the bottom of that mountain, it looks insurmountable and it is really annoying to hear, oh, well, knuckle down and earn more and yet, similar thing. My last year of uni was, I think, 2011, which is horrifyingly long ago now. We don't need to dwell on that bit. But at that point in my life, I was earning not much. It was very unstable work as well. My career in media started out those casual 0 hours contracts. It wasn't great and it wasn't paid heaps. And it was really, really hard. And yet when I look back at the journey I've had and where I've ended up, I would have never thought I was capable of ending up at the financial position I'm at. And it has all been incremental changes, snowballing up. Each step up that you take makes it so much easier to reach the next one from that. And so you end up at a place where from the bottom of that mountain, you'd have never thought you could get there. Each step up makes the next one so much more possible. And I just think it is that classic of people overestimate what can be achieved in a year and underestimate what can be achieved in 5. And now to be able to make a decision of saying, you know what, this bothers me and $20,000 bothers me and I'm doing it. To me, that's kind of the point of financial freedom. Whether or not other people think it's frippery or whatever, doesn't matter. It brought value to your life and you were able to do it. That's kind of the whole point, right?
The big thing I would say, and this will probably get me in like some trouble as well, is that if the situation you're in is because of like, if it's somebody else's fault, right? Or if there's things that happen that where you look at this and go like, well, that's fine for him to say or whatever. The problem is you're giving other people control of the situation. You're going like, this has happened to me, opposed to going, well, this is what have I got within my control where I can do things better. Like I'm going to like within work, I've got a career plan of how I'm going to get my income to a certain point, which I think is very material for finances. If somebody comes to me and they've got, a family and they're earning $70,000 a year, there's no point in me putting a budget together for them or a wealth creation strategy, because with the cost of living, all their money has disappeared. Like your income needs to be at a certain point for this to work. And then going, if you can, as crazy it sounds, I've got people who earn a couple $1 million a year who come to me and they're going backwards each fortnight. And it sounds crazy, but I promise you, if you can't manage $50,000 a year, you won't be able to manage a bigger income. Everybody can do with more income. Nobody can do with a pay cut. And it's going like, how do I what is my plan to improve my situation? Which is why we do, checks and balances 3 times a week. Is there's so many free resources out there to go, how am I going to improve my situation? And yep, you won't be able to spend 20 grand on your hair tomorrow. And I hope you've got the genetics where you don't have to spend the money on the hair at all. But over time, how can I build a financial position where I've got more options for myself? Because I think there's the big thing around like, money doesn't buy happiness, but if your money's not in a certain level of order, it's very hard to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And to go back into some of the financial fundamentals, we talked about the things that make it a good decision. Is there anything where if a client was talking to you and said, I want to do this and I'm going to do it this way, that you would go, red flag? I mean, you mentioned the high interest debt. Would that be the big red flag?
That would be a big one. I think I'll give you a perfect example. So I was talking to a lady, her husband passed away relatively recently. One, she's very emotional, but she's telling me about all these decisions she needs to make in a really short period of time. Like, I need to do this thing by Monday. I need to make this decision about my business by the end of next week. And I'm just like, if you put if you're in a position where you're emotional and you're trying to make decisions quickly, increases the probability dramatically that you'll make the wrong decision. So they would be the other kind of red flags I would say is going, when we're talking about like building your wealth over a period of time, and we're saying it takes a long period of time, what is the rush to go? There is the opposite of like a lack of inaction and people stay poor because they won't pull the trigger on things. But if we're emotional, that's a bad place to be making decisions about money. And if we're putting like time frames around it, where it goes, I have to, like, say a perfect example is like a holiday deal comes up. We got to buy it tonight or we're going to miss out or whatever. That's not a great place to be making a decision either.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. Great advice on that one. It's like the classic of if you get a big inheritance or if you're lucky enough to win lotto, it's a similar sort of thing. Money falls from the sky. Often the classic is just wait a year before you do anything because you need time to cool down. Money and emotion, unfortunately, simply do not mix. Look, if there was only one thing that people took from our conversation, what do you hope that would be?
Go get good hair.
Grow out a glorious mullet and flick it like you're in a Pantene
Yeah,
ad.
look, I got some work to be done at the back. No, like in all seriousness, I like coming back to the money is just a tool to live the life you want to live now and in the future. You don't want to die with regrets. We only get to go around once. At the end of the day, after our grandkids, nobody's going to remember like who we were or what we did. So you might as well go and enjoy your life and do the things that are important to you. And you don't need to do those without understanding the implications on other things within your life. But if you've got all of the pieces that are important to you and you're like, well, I can actually do this thing that would make a material impact in my life and it won't impact my other goals, go and do it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm so with you. All right. Well, if people loved what you have to say, they want to get more from you, where can they find you? Because, of course, you've got podcasts, you've got social media. Drop them all. Tell us.
Cool. Okay, so if you're wanting to have a chat with a financial advisor, lighthousefinancial.co.nz. We've also got a mortgage team, an accounting team as well. Happy to have an initial chat and see if we can help. And if you go, would love to hear my voice more often, just search on YouTube or Spotify, wherever it might be, Checks and Balances. Check the old way that we used to do it. I do it with my best mate, Mike. He's the fun one. I'm probably a little bit more serious. So good blend between us.
Love it so much. Thank you so much for coming on, James. And I've got to say, the hair looks glorious. For anyone who's just listening to this on Spotify, have a quick squiz at the YouTube and see the beautiful hair that James shelled out for. That's James Blair from Lighthouse Financial. Now, if this episode was helpful for you, first of all, hit subscribe so you never miss a trick with your money. Second of all, send it to a friend so that we can all get smarter with money together. Until next time, have a great day.
Just a note before you go, this podcast can only give you general information about how things work in most cases. It's not individual financial advice. We're all different, so some of this might not apply to your specific situation. Take what works for you, ignore the rest. If you're after individual financial advice, a financial advisor is always the best bet.